newspapers over the last few weeks, including this morning's, that this is the first serious threat to the monopoly of the cab trade. I'd like to point out that there is no monopoly at all in the cab trade. There is nobody, none of your listeners, even you, can become a cab driver and a cab proprietor tomorrow. So where the monopoly exists, I don't know. These minicabs are coming in through the back door, getting round the law, or trying to get round the law, in order to make a living, and in the same time taking our living away from us. I suggest to these cab drivers, these mini-cab drivers, it makes me laugh even talking about them as cab drivers, I suggest that they go through the orthodox way, through Scotland Yard, to become cab drivers.
I'm the third generation of my family to be associated with the London cab trade, and I think this is a diabolical liberty.
Well, I'm not really worried about it. I should just forget about it, because I'm really certain the police will sort this out.
I think that all cab drivers should go through the severe test that we taxi drivers have to go through.
Well, I feel very bitter about it. These cars, the minicabs that are coming on the road this week, these French cars, seem to be run by the Foreign Legion. Even their uniform looks like it. I feel very bitter about it all.
Now look here, it took me 18 months to do the knowledge, and I don't see why Mr. Gottler should come along with his little minicabs and his drivers in ridiculous uniforms to try and take my work away.
Well, I'm very seriously concerned about the whole affair, because I don't feel that anybody invests the sort of sum that has been invested in this merely on spec. I feel that they're pretty confident about it so far, and if they do get any footing at all, I feel our goose might be cooked.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, as you might have gathered, the taxi drivers aren't at all keen on the minicabs. Mind you, they emphasise that they're not at war with them, although there have been one or two minor skirmishes this week. Officially, there shouldn't be any trouble, providing the minicab firms stick to what they're legally allowed to do, and that is to act as a car hire service and do not ply for hire. To ply for hire, a London taxi has to pass a series of very tough tests laid down by Scotland Yard. And a taxi driver can only become a taxi driver when he's satisfied the Yard that he's spent a year, or in some cases considerably more, learning his way about London. This is the knowledge, as the taxi drivers call it. Now, the minicab people say that the Hackney carriage laws, which enforce all this, are antiquated. They say that a man can learn the knowledge in a far shorter period of time. All these arguments have flared up this week after the inauguration of the largest minicab fleet to go onto the streets of London.
200 French cars from a factory just outside Paris, where they roll off the production line by the thousand. Eventually, if these are successful, Michael Gottler, managing director of Welbeck Motors, hopes to have a fleet of 2,000 in London alone. Then the intention is to branch out into the rest of the country. But in no sense are these taxis. You can't flag one down in the street, not legally anyway, and be taken off in it. That would be classed as plying for hire. But, say Welbeck, you can ask the driver to let his base know that you wish to order another car. This, they say, counts as a booking. Others say it's a misuse of the radio, but in any case you must wait wherever the driver has told the company you'll be. And while you wait, your order joins the others reaching headquarters by radio and telephone. Half a dozen operators on duty at a time are each expected to be able to handle 100 calls an hour. That's one every 36 seconds. Name, address, telephone number, destination, and any other relevant details. The information is noted on a form, which could be shown as proof of booking, and passed on to one of the dispatchers. He, in turn, passes it on by radio to any driver who can accept the order.
Second call, Vernon Road, East Sheen. This is at East Sheen. Vernon Road, going to Kingston Hospital. Vernon Road, East Sheen, going to Kingston Hospital.
Red 45 control, red 45 control. Can give you 10 minutes on that job, control.
Now, although the order has been accepted, no money is due until the passenger gets into the car. The fare will then be £1 a mile for as long as the passenger's there. No payment is due for the return trip. A 50-mile journey for which the car might have to travel 100 miles to and from its base would cost 50 shillings. I wondered how on earth Mr. Gottler, or Mr. G as he calls himself, thought he could make it pay.
We started off at this very low price. We then built our product to fit that price. We bought a very small car in very large numbers, and then we fitted advertisements to it.
You fitted advertisements. Do you think people are going to like riding in a car covered in advertisements?
The London buses are red and carry advertisements. Nobody seems to mind very much.
They don't charge quite as much.
I don't think I do charge much more than the London bus when there are 3 in the cab.
Now, what about the Royal Parks? Aren't you governed there by carrying adverts?
There's a little misunderstanding, but we're sorting it all out, and we're going through the Royal Parks tonight, and nobody seems to mind.
The London cabbie has got a very proud tradition behind him, and he's very proud of it himself. Do you think that you're not being a little bit unfair to them?
Very largely, I agree with him. At the opening, I said that when we'd had our testing period for 3 months, I was going to ask to come under some form of government control. But don't let him exaggerate the position. All this business about the knowledge is not as difficult as he makes out. And in any case, the test that our drivers will have to be subjected to will be a rather different one, because our field of operations is over a very large area. The London cabbie only marches on the 6 centre miles of London, and I don't think it would be necessary for our drivers to know where the Fly Fishers Club is, for instance.
But the taxi driver is expected to know that sort of thing. He isn't allowed to drive a cab until he's got what he calls his bill, his licence, and he doesn't get that until he's satisfied Scotland Yard that he knows London inside out. Once he's got that bill, though, he's an independent man. He may buy his own cab or drive for a company. It might be a large company or a one-man concern, but the driver doesn't get paid. He does the paying. Pays the company, in fact, just over 12 shillings for every pound on the clock. The rest, extras and tips, he keeps. He's not obliged to work, but if he drives for someone else, he is obliged to bring his cab back on time if another man's taking it on for a later shift. That's very often why a driver passes you with a strap round his meter. In any case, the cab must by law return to its base once in every 24 hours to be cleaned inside and out. The London General Cab Company, with 250 vehicles, has installed the kind of equipment which is now being used commercially to wash private cars for about 12 and 6 a time. The same Hackney carriage laws which say that the cab must be perfectly clean say that it must also be mechanically perfect. Each vehicle is licensed for a year and must then pass a public carriage inspection before being relicensed. And that test is thorough. A cab can be sent back if the inspector is dissatisfied for any reason, whether the fault is a mechanical one or is simply a matter of appearance. A stripped-down cab shows, incidentally, why it can turn in such a small space, and it's all in accordance with the standards set down by law. This company saves time by using replacement units. They can change anything in a matter of minutes if necessary, even the engine. The only thing they can't deal with here is the meter. That's sealed officially elsewhere. Anyway, before a taxi is allowed out, a great deal of time and money has been spent in satisfying those Hackney carriage laws.